going on? Welcome back to the Insight with Irv show. Today we have not only a great guest, but we have a fantastic conversation. A good friend of mine out of South Florida, Pastor Danny Prada, for the church Heartway, which we are going to be obviously getting a little bit more into the type of work that he does, because we always like to get the behind the scenes, right? It's the Insight with Irv show. So we like to get a little bit of the insight of what that looks like, because it's not just what you guys see, let's say on Sundays, but also I wanted to bring him on just because I think he has a perspective on a lot of topics. Whenever I listen to him speak, and don't take offense to this, Danny, and I haven't mentioned this to you, but it's almost, to me, it's almost like a stoic approach, which I enjoy. I really do. I know to some people that are maybe rough for their feathers, you're laughing, but it's just how I perceive some of the stuff.
Right.
You can tell you're a deep thinker. And so I don't want to obviously hog the mic today. I want you to do most of the talking, just because I want you guys to really listen to what comes out of his mouth. Because again, his perspective is quite unique. So man, I am happy to have you on the show.
No, thank you, man. I'm very excited. And listen, in my world, for anybody to call me a stoic is like, that's my love language.
I love it. I love it, man. How's everything going for you down in South Florida?
Everything's good. Everything's good. You know, we are putting so much time and energy into building Heartway, this wonderful spiritual community with people from all walks of life, coming together, just talking about the art of living. That's what I'm really passionate about, even just beyond religion and different traditions that we may be a part of. What I'm really interested in is that which connects everybody from all different walks of life. And all of us are trying to figure out what it means to be human.
Right.
So that's where my mind goes. That's how I help people, is to live into the fullness of their humanity.
I love that. When you say kind of learning how to be human,
Mm-hmm.
that's an interesting implication. And this is what I'm talking about right here, like just his thought process. Again, very unique. What do you mean? Can you kind of take us a little like a step further into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, most of us have big questions pertaining to our existence, like, why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? Is life even meaningful? And if we aren't really wrestling with those questions consciously, unconsciously, they're kind of dictating the way that we live our lives, because we are all on a search for happiness. We're all on a search for satisfaction. And so for some of us, that means, man, I've got to just follow my dreams and take this career thing all the way 110%. Others of us, it's making money, and my self-worth is connected to how much money I make or not. Others of us, it's, man, the partying and just, we just are drinking, or all that stuff. I drink, but what I mean is in an unhealthy way.
When it becomes a substance at that point.
Right. I love, to drink, but you know what I mean? When something is really like a way of you of escaping your life, escaping your issues. So in that sense, when I talk about how to be human, it's like, yeah, how do we deal with these existential questions about our existence, and how can we even begin the journey towards a satisfying existence?
Right. That's such an interesting thought, because so many people are used to, when I'll be here, I'll be happy, or when I have this, I'll be happier. And I think a lot of us, especially in the entrepreneur journey, obviously you're an entrepreneur yourself, you run an organization, you know what that's like, where if I have X amount of, let's say, leaders in this position, or once we have X amount of people visiting us on a Sunday,
right.
And sometimes if we don't stop and absorb, we can lose everything that we've been gifted today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when you mention that resonates, because obviously being a business owner, an entrepreneur, that's like really one of the first things that even myself, I've struggled with, of, once you earn, let's say, X amount of dollars, which is also something that I've noticed as well, even now throughout the pandemic, of mental health has become a really big thing. And so how do you find the balance of, okay, I'm, let's say, providing for my family, I'm excelling in an aspect of my business, my marriage, my family, whatever that looks like for you. But at the same time, I don't want to lose the essence of, I still need to keep striding. What's that balance like?
Right. And that is the balance between contentment and ambition. And it is definitely a delicate, balancing
Like a
act.
teeter totter, right?
Right, but it's an important one to find your sweet spot there, because if not, you're just uh, uh, you know chasing after something that, even when you get it, doesn't give you what you thought it would, and
Right,
so you're eventually just always empty within yourself. you
right,
know so that contentment piece is being willing to say, even if nothing about my circumstances were to change, or about my financial situation were to change, I would still be okay within myself. My sense of worth is not attached to what I have or don't have, what I do or don't do.
right.
So that that's something that most people, they don't even know that exists. They don't even know that that's possible, but it is. And when you can find that sense of inner contentment before you accomplish anything, you're actually better set up to go out and reach for the stars, and live your dreams, and go after what you're going after, because your identity is not attached to it. So you can take more risks. You don't care about what other people think. You're willing to make mistakes and fail. You
Right.
understand? As opposed to when it's just about, like, the image, like, I need all this set up in my life for the image.
Right.
Now you're basically a slave to society and culture and other people and what they think about you. So
You know what I've noticed, because I wanted to add on to that. It's almost as if, and a lot of people think, especially if you're striving to, let's say, accomplish that one thing, and I'm sure you can maybe bounce off of this as well. It's almost as if the more you have and the more you accomplish, the more you become afraid of losing it.
yes, that too. And also, the more threatened you are by other people taking it.
Yeah, the
You
number
know?
one spot.
Right,
Yeah,
right. So it's a lot of people, they that's the world, that's where they live, and that's all there is. I think when you're in that for an extended period of time, it can get so tiring and exhausting,
yeah,
that some of us, we start looking inward and asking different questions about why we're doing what we're doing,
yeah.
and what's the intention and the motivation, and what do I think I'm going to get out of this that I can't find now in this moment.
Right. And I think a lot of that also has to do with kind of like what you mentioned earlier of people striding and they're connecting kind of like their self-worth to their net worth. And it's
Right.
not even that.
Right.
I mean, it's so far from it, because I've spoken to people on both sides, obviously, of the pendulum, or both sides of the scale, where some have it all. And I mean,
Right.
anyone looking at them would want to trade places, but
Mhm.
they're looking back at, I would give everything up just to kind of be where I was before,
I know, it's
which is
crazy. Like,
interesting how that works
sometimes,
out.
sometimes you'll see this with, like, celebrities too. It's like everybody, so many normal, average, unknown people want to be famous or well known, or of course we want to have a lot of followers because of our society that we're in today.
Mhm.
And when you look at the people that have a ton of followers, they're like, I'm deactivating my Instagram for a
Yeah.
year. I
Just want
can't
to
deal with
hide.
this. People are so negative. Like, this is the
Yeah.
worst. It's not always the case, okay?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
overgeneralizing, and there's a way to do social media in a balanced way as well. But my point is, like, we don't even really know what we want and what comes with that.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the people, we just want what we don't have. That's the human dilemma. And we think that by getting what we don't have, we're going to be satisfied, but it's a never ending chase, So
Yeah.
the people
It
with
is a
no
never-ending
followers
chase.
want all the followers. The people with all the followers wish they could be anonymous again.
Yeah. That's it's almost everyone wants to trade places. No one's happy where they're at, but everyone wants to go somewhere. So it's the craziest thing. I noticed something in your and obviously your organization and obviously your spiritual community. You guys tend to push, and I don't, and I use the word push, obviously not in a demeaning way, but obviously try to really promote it. Is really what I'm looking for. Promote more of, I guess, guided meditation.
Mhm.
And in Western, I guess here where we live, it's a little different from Eastern culture. Eastern culture, that's normal. Western culture, people start thinking, okay, you're going off the woo-ha.
Right.
And it's even and it's interesting because you even see that in scripture,
Hmm.
where there is some guided meditation. Obviously, it's not broken down that way.
Right.
We obviously substitute it more with just pray, he prayed or he went to go pray, but we kind of gloss over the fact that, well, technically these people, men and women, they went by themselves to do an activity apart from prayer. What was it?
Right.
So why exactly do you kind of really want to push that envelope here, this culture, this society?
Yeah, because it's the complete inverse of how Western culture and society operates, and we need the inverse because we're always looking for mental stimulation.
When you
We're
say
all
inverse, what do you mean? Like if I'm listening to you, what do you
so
mean?
meditation is the inverse of what's happening in Western culture and society, which is, Western society is all about speeding things up. I mean, you've got to be busy. If you're not busy, if you don't act like you're busy, you're not important. I remember people used to always call me, "Hey, Danny, how you doing?" "Oh, good, man, just busy." I always used to feel like I had to tell them I was busy because busy meant, hey, this guy's important. He's doing stuff, right?
Yep.
So
Even if you're just laying on the couch.
right. You
Yeah,
just
yeah,
you gotta look like you're busy.
yeah.
So we're so lost in this doing more, chasing. Meditation is like slow down completely. Get a little quiet. Don't do anything for 5 minutes. There's a philosopher by the name of Blaise Pascal who said, all of humanity's problems come back to the fact that we can't sit in a room quietly for 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's fact.
Because when you sit quietly with yourself, you start to see what's in you come to the surface, And so uh, meditation is a way of helping us to slow ourselves down, find some interior stillness and quiet, and begin to observe the workings of our mind. Just to begin watching and studying ourselves. The ancient Greeks on almost all of their temples would put 3 maxims inscribed in the walls. And those 3 maxims were know yourself, everything in moderation, and certainty brings ruin.
Mm.
And that first one, know yourself, that's what meditation helps you do, to get to know ourselves, to understand our emotions and what's behind them, to study our reactions. That's the way to happiness. The other way is that person needs to change or this situation needs to change for me to be happy. This way is I'm going to take full responsibility for my
Right.
internal world.
Right.
So if I'm triggered, instead of pointing the finger outward and blaming somebody, let me look at what it is within myself that's creating this
Yeah.
reaction, and let me work from it there. Otherwise, I'm just going to always be a puppet to other people.
Do you often
So
find a bit more hesitancy whenever I guess you're guiding someone through that process, or is it, or do they accept it, or is it challenging to really sit there for 5 minutes, like in your experience?
I've gotten from a lot of the folks that we practice meditation with is mixed. There's a lot who they just love it, and that's comfortable for them. It's something that they practice in their own lives. For other people, they tell me, they're like, Danny, I can't do it. Meditation's not for me. My mind's just going everywhere, and I don't even,
Which you
this.
probably needed the most at that point, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
but that's fine,
You're the
and
perfect candidate.
yeah, for some
Yeah.
people, they don't feel comfortable, and that's okay. Meditation, more than just like a 10-minute, thing that you do by yourself, is actually a way of life.
Mm.
And there's a way to live your life in a sense that you're just kind of letting things be instead of trying to force everything.
Right.
And that's what you kind of learn how to inhabit that kind of space through meditation. Just the letting things be, letting go, not always having to control or manipulate or have things go your way.
Right. Do you add that on top of, let's say, your prayer life, or is that something totally separate of how you maybe would guide someone through that process?
Well, meditation is prayer, and in my tradition in Christianity, the earliest church fathers who spoke about this actually said that prayer without words, or meditation, is the highest form of prayer, because God um, is beyond all thought and beyond all words and beyond all concepts. So unless we're able to also move beyond words and concepts and beliefs and thoughts, we won't attain God realization. And so meditation is a way of going beyond the words, going beyond the concepts. Our mind, let's say something happens to you, and let's say, your business is tanked. Or actually, let me use my example because I think this is relevant. Remember how I told you my crypto wallet got stolen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a Coinbase. I started investing some money, and it was 3-4 weeks, went all in on Ether, and I got in when it was 2,200. Now it's 4,100. We're balling, putting money in. And one day I wake up right before that recent crash, and it says your password has been changed. And then I look on my email, and everything is gone.
Man.
So when something like that happens in our life, we rush to interpret that. And we'll say, oh, shit, man, or something. This is bad. I'm pissed. Now I got, and oh my God, all this money that I saved now, and I can create all these narratives and stories that will work against me. And what you learn to do through meditation is let go of the need to constantly interpret and give meaning to every situation in life.
That's good.
So you know what? This happened, but why is it bad? It's only bad if I say it's bad, if I interpret it that way. So let me take a step back. And yeah, my mind is going to be negative and the negative voices are going to be there, but I'm not going to attach myself to any of that. I'm not going to identify myself with that negative voice. I'm going to take a step back, let things be as they are, and just kind of go with the flow. And when you start to do that, you become empowered. You become empowered, and you're able to rise above your circumstances. And so this, for me, that happening to me is just a wonderful opportunity to put into practice everything I talk about.
Yeah.
That's it. And then now everything in your life serves that purpose. So, to be a spiritual person, even though that means different things to different people, but to be a spiritual person is essentially to understand that everything that happens is for the sake of bringing you to this higher understanding. It is for your spiritual evolution. And so whatever it is that may occur is helping me grow.
Right. And that's the thing, we often get in our own way, and we all want to learn our lessons, but we only want to learn it in a way that we're willing for it to be taught to us, which is kind of pretty much like what you're saying. I mean, who really wants to wake up one day and their account wiped out? You know what I mean? Like, no one picks that lesson. I'm sure if we can go back, let me pick another lesson. Let me have my car broken into, maybe the radio stolen, but not an entire account wiped out. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, this is life hack 101. It's stoicism 101, actually. And since you mentioned that, I'm so happy that you even said that. I'm like my philosophy is a blend of Zen, stoicism, and mysticism, if I can summarize it well. So I'm a stoic at heart. And Marcus Aurelius once said, love the hand that fate deals you. For what else could be more fitting? And so the Stoics have this concept of amor fati. It literally means the love of fate. Whatever happens, whatever life brings your way, accept it as if you chose it yourself and be at peace. That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of us, but we suffer. But we suffer because we don't want to swallow that pill. Yeah. And we resist the way things are, and we don't like the hand that fate deals to us. And that's when your internal world gets very dark, when you want reality to be something other than it is. And accepting reality, like you said, can seem harsh, but it is, what other choice do we have? That's how I see it. I don't have any other choice. So if I start there with just accepting reality, now I'm in the positive, not the negative.
Right. And I mean, that's really the only way that you can put it. It's like, what else can you do with it? It's kind of like dealing with the hand that you've been given, right?
Right.
And so if I'm sitting in front of you right now and I ask you, counseling session, right? And someone asks you right now, well, Pastor, this is the fate that I've been given or that I'm dealing with right now, but it seems to be contradictory to what I feel the will of God is over my life.
Mhm.
what actionable steps, or how would you guide them through kind of like merging those two things together? Because the will of God is one thing, and faith is totally different subject, or
Right.
different, obviously, thing that we're dealing with here.
Well, I see it as one and the same.
Okay.
I see God's will is what is. And so when the scriptures talk about like my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, my ways are higher than your ways, and when Jesus before he experiences his death on a cross says, "Not my will, but your will be done," that's called surrender. So what we may feel is the will of God, sometimes it's just our will, and that's what needs to be put aside. It is um instead of wanting life to be what you want it to be, you learn how to want life to be what it is, because you trust that God, the divine, the higher power, is the one behind everything. So like in the scriptures, especially in the Hebrew scriptures, like the Jewish people had a very high understanding of what they called God's providence or sovereignty, which basically means like everything that happens is the will of God. Even the darkest, most difficult things for us to understand are somehow a part of the divine purposes. And if we can just let go of what we think the situation needs to be and trust that it always is what it is, and that God is going to bring something good from this, then we will be safe in that faith. That's really a core message of our religious tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I see that.
So you see
Fate
it
is just
one and the same, really.
yeah.
Kind of
It's
separating, is it really God's word? Or is it kind of just your emotion of what you're interpreting what God's will
right,
is over your life?
right. God is ultimately, when you let go, when you really like um, live in a childlike dependence on God and ultimate reality, you know, it, you can't help but see everything as God.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like that's that's the only way I've known how to be at peace, is to just see everything that happens as God doing what God is doing, and I may not understand it,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna trust that we're good.
Regardless of how bad it hurts.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the only other alternative is for me to impose my will and suffer, because I think life should be something other than what it is in this moment.
That thought right there, I would suffer. Is that kind of that's kind of imposing that sometimes we create our own self-inflicted suffer that shouldn't
Yes.
be there.
Well, it's there, so it's there, but yes, like a lot of our suffering is self-imposed suffering based on our interpretations of reality and the way that we perceive things.
And even what you mentioned earlier, for example, somebody right now that lost that amount of money, let's say in an account, they would be going, let's say, crazy.
Hmm.
Obviously, that's like you mentioned, it's a suffer, but I think that it could be an extended period of what really you should have been there for.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's that I could still be suffering now because of that. I could be telling you, man, I can't believe this. Of all the freaking accounts, they're going to take mine. And now, all that money I saved up is gone. And we had plans to do this, that, or the other, and that's canceled. And Irv, I don't know, bro. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, yeah,
I can
yeah,
be doing that.
yeah.
And there ain't no problem with it. That's fine. If that's where you are, you gotta just let those emotions be there and deal with it. But you learn how to just kind of go with the flow of things.
And I mean, speaking of flow, obviously we're coming off of one of the most difficult times that any of us would maybe be able to tell our children and our grandchildren, the pandemic. Do you feel, or maybe from what you've seen, and obviously you can answer this however you like, it's not one or the other, so I just kind of want to throw the ball in your court. Do you feel that this pandemic and the way that the climate and the social climate, do you feel that more people are getting closer to maybe discovering a higher power? Or do you think it's kind of pushed them away of, if there was a higher power, why would something like this happen?
Yeah, I would I have no idea what the pulse is on that, but I can tell you from my experience, I have seen a mix of both. You know, I've seen people who, in the midst of this kind of tragedy, it's just what else can they do but just ask why God, why me, why this? That is such a normal human impulse. You know, that's really where the journey begins. It's asking those big why questions. For me, I kept asking that and asking that and asking that until I finally realized there's no answer. No answer. And I had to come to terms with that. I had to be at peace with the fact that there was no answer to my question why. And trying to understand and fathom the unfathomable, and trying to make sense of nonsense is just not going to work out. So you let that go. You let that go, and you live kind of like a child. That's how Jesus described it. He said it was like a childlike faith. It's I rather not know. Keep
Yeah.
me, you know.
Which is for some of us sometimes not knowing or not having an answer and is worse than getting a no. Like
Right, right.
yeah, I'll take a yes or a no, but not knowing drives me crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My whole spiritual journey has been about diving into not knowing and being swimming comfortably in that ocean of
Yeah.
not knowing.
Which
Because
isn't the easiest.
it is not the easiest, but it is the easiest when you get used to it. It's like anything. It's like anything. You know, you have to practice, put in time and hours, and that's how it is with spiritual practice. It's like getting comfortable with the not knowing, letting things be, surrender. All of that it's just the more you do it, the more comfortable you get in that. And then the opposite is what seems weird to you.
Yeah. I've
You know,
always wanted to know every single detail about every single plan.
right, right.
And so with that, and this will be the last question because I know you have to head out, but with that, if I right now I'm going through a tough time, whether depression or anxiety, my business is crumbling, I lost money in the stock market, maybe my wife wants to leave me, whatever that tough time looks like, what are some actionable steps or maybe some protocols that you would normally be able to kind of guide someone with in order for them to kind of get through? I don't really want to say the word get over, but kind of get through that tough time. Because very, very seldom can I say that someone ever actually gets over it. Because I think that sometimes stays there for us to kind of remember that lesson. At least that's
Right,
the way that I see it.
right, right, right. Well, what I really feel like saying now is just don't be against yourself. We so often in those moments kind of revert to insecurity, lack of self-worth, self-doubt. We beat ourselves up. We start we no longer believe in ourselves anymore and what we are capable of actually doing in the world. It's very easy, at least for me, to slip into that mode when it's just not working out, the way I thought it would, and I'm going through a really difficult time right now. And so just don't be against yourself. And what I mean by that is there's a difference between self-reflection and self-criticism. What your situation probably needs right now is some self-reflection, some assessment. Let's assess what's going on without judging and labeling anything and figure out what the next best move is, as opposed to self-bashing and self-criticizing, or bashing and blaming other people, which is even worse because you're not even wanting to take responsibility for yourself, but it's everybody else's fault that we're in this situation.
All right.
So no blaming, no judging others or even yourself. Do some self-reflection, but don't move into self-criticism. And be gentle with yourself. I think if you take those steps, you'll be able to kind of get through what you're going through, like even more mature, more refined than you were before. It's like, let's go back to this little example with my Coinbase crypto. You know what? This happened, and now it's like, oh, hey, bud, why don't you get a Trezor wallet?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
It's an expensive lesson.
hey,
Yeah.
expensive lesson, but I wouldn't have learned it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that was not on my radar. I was just, I had another friend of mine who's like, dude, thank you so much for telling me about your experience because I got my wallet. I had a lot of money on there. So
Sheesh.
you take these gems with you, and now you use that to propel you forward.
Right. And I mean, like you said, one thing that I really take from that is I think sometimes when we don't self-assess and we just start kind of jumping into it, we kind of just start digging ourselves into a deeper hole.
Right.
It's kind of how I see it. And so I just wanted to ask you this last question here, man. What's next for you? What's next for your journey? What's next for your spiritual community, your organization? If there's anything that you guys are working on that maybe you want to bring awareness to.
Yeah, well, no, thank you so much. Every month we're doing different events in our community, whether it's feeding the homeless or doing a beach cleanup next week on Saturday. There's always ways for us we're always looking for ways to kind of give back. And so, anybody can tune into what we're doing through looking up Heartway on iTunes or Spotify or Podbean, or you can go on YouTube and search Heartway, and you can see the different messages and meditations that we put out there. And heartwaychurch.com, you can always go on there and support what we're doing if you like it financially even. And, we'd really appreciate that. Our next step is to keep doing what we're doing. We help people in this process of self-discovery. And we do that by meeting weekly on Sundays, providing content online, and just working one-on-one with a lot of folks. So, that's it. I love what I do. My wife and I love what we do. We're just going to continue to put our love and effort into that. And in the near future, we're going to be doing some retreats. So that'll be cool. That's something new and different.
Love
And
it.
I'm sure y'all will be able to take a look at that online. So
Love it. And for those of you guys that are listening right now, if you're tuning in, let's say over on iTunes or Spotify, that's Heart's Way, like the heart. So that's HEART, Way, WAY, heartway.com or heartwaychurch.com.
heartwaychurch.com. And also
Heartwaychurch.com.
as well, my IG handle at @D_Prada. And I'll be putting up some info there about some coaching that I want to be doing in the future as well, like spiritual coaching. So anybody can just kind of hit me up and we can talk about that.
There we go. Love that. And I'll go ahead and drop it down as well in the description. Again, if you're listening on YouTube or if you are listening, again, over on Spotify or on Apple or pretty much any other platform. Brother, I appreciate you letting me have you on. This is a good conversation. This is a little bit different from what I normally post on my channel, but like I was talking to you about earlier, I want to bring some variety just because I think that there's more to life than just money and business. There really
Absolutely. Is. And this all correlates to it very well. So
yeah, it really does. Again, I appreciate you guys listening. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Join the official community. Until next time, everyone, I will see you in the next episode.